Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Team and Ambitions YouTube. I am Andrew. I'll be hosting our discussion today. We're going to be talking about the Set Championship Series tonight. Joining me today is the one and only sleepyGary Lindner and one of our new members, Brandon Breitenstein, also known as theHapaOne. You can find him on Instagram. His tag will be in the description. Brandon, welcome to the team. Welcome to YouTube. Well, at least our YouTube. You might be on YouTube. How you feeling?
I feel like I've met a bunch of you a while back and just good to be part of the team and like taking stuff to a more competitive level. Yeah.
And Dylan, how are you doing tonight?
Off camera, I knocked some cards and ran over one of my foil daisy ducks. So you can see like a little bit of a crease right here. So if anyone has to hook up on particularly one foil daisy duck, let your boy know, because he just ran over his.
Yeah, rest in peace, Dylan's fourth foil daisy duck. We are looking for at least one. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you all for joining me out there in listener world. We're going to be talking about these Shimmering Skies Set Championships. We are fully underway of Set Championship season. We are one weekend in. We all have now competed in one Set Championship, and that has been an interesting experience. We might get into that a little bit later, but we still have 3 more weekends coming up, and really only 2 weekends because we're only 3 weekends away from DLC Seattle. How was both of your Set Championship experiences?
It was fine. I think I was playing a different deck just because I wanted to play something a little different than what I'm going to play in Seattle. I thought the deck was going to be good going into it. We had some issues with the tournament that maybe we'll get into later, but it played well. I didn't hate how it played, but ended up, getting knocked out pretty quickly. And yeah, I'm going back to the deck I'm going to play in Seattle for the next Set Champs.
Yeah, for myself, I think I played the typical boogeyman of the format. I play Zan's Green Steel list with two extra cards, going 62 card route. I know. Grab your swords at me. I deserve it. It ran pretty well. It's a deck that I'm definitely considered to bring Seattle, but I haven't decided on whether bringing blue red or green steel. So we'll decide. But it ran good. I ended up getting top 4. Unfortunately, the store that we all played at didn't have the promo, so I have yet to receive my my 5 out of 5 car Mirabelle Madrigal. But we'll wait maybe 5 days, and then it will be really on brand.
And I was actually running a similar deck to Brandon, and, we just did not have the best of days, partly from the tournament issues, but, we're just going to go ahead and move on, because we have another couple of weekends to look forward to, and some advice to share with you all. This is now our 3rd season of Set Championships. We had one back in Into the Inklands where you could have won your promo Rockstar Stitch, one at Ursula's Return where you could have won your promo Ursula Sea Witch Queen. There's a Rockstar Stitch right there. And then this season where you can win your promo Enchanted Mirabelle Madrigal. Now, we already have talked about kind of the disappointment surrounding Mirabelle Madrigal. Not the most exciting Enchanted, mostly because the card doesn't really see any sort of meta play, but you can still earn them, and you can earn it just from getting top 8. So if you only have 16 people at your tournament, you're a 50% chance of just walking in and getting a Mirabelle Madrigal. It's pretty awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about what should you think about playing. The main decks, I think, we all have seen over the last couple of weeks, probably the biggest winner right now has been Green Steel, Zan Syed completely influencing the entire meta. But we've also seen, the typical staple decks just hanging around. Your Amber Steel songs, your Red Blue decks. But what other decks should we be thinking about as we enter in another weekend of Set Championships?
I would say anything green. I think green purple is going to be there a lot. Green yellow is going to be there a lot. Green steel.
I think you'll see a lot of green decks, generally because red X decks are kind of weak to the discard engine. Mostly red-based decks kind of just ink for one a turn, or if they're in blue shells, they have low cards in hand because they're inking, double inking, triple inking. So they're particularly weak by discard, and you can really choke point their ink and make them, stuck on 4 ink for about 5 turns. So I think green, particularly with bird and discard engines, are going to be very good for this Set Championships.
I think to counterplay some of that, one of the decks that kind of risen as a result of the rise of Green Steel was probably blue steel. Like we know 2 set championships just in our area where a blue steel player had made the top 4, one had made top 2, and theoretically could have won the whole thing. It runs very well into green steel because you can just fire the cannons a Diablo, and they wasted 3 cards to their 1. I mean, if they did not see the fire of the cannons coming for some reason after playing the baby bird. But what are y'all feeling about that particular deck?
I haven't really faced it much. I faced it a few times, but it does feel really good against Diablo. They have 3 different removals that kill Diablo in that deck. So I think it's good against Diablo. I'm not sure how it does against the other decks though. I think if you're expecting a lot of green steel, a lot of green in general, then blue steel might be the way to go. But if your area's got more red blue and more red purple, then I don't know if it's the way to go.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like there are definitely some metas where like people have told me like, oh yeah, the top 4 or 8 was like 5 green steel players, or out of a field of 30 people, like 16 people were on green steel or something, like some ridiculous amount of number, because there was a lot of like ex-Bucky players who really missed their squirrel, so they're like, all right, looks like this card's back on the menu, boys. So if you're expecting that, then yeah, blue steel's great, but like I wouldn't recommend it because it just doesn't have a great blue-red matchup, and so it can be pretty dang hairy, and I wouldn't want to bring that. But hey, if you just dodge the blue-red, then you'll be golden, baby.
Yeah, blue-red into a blue steel feels pretty good. Blue steel depends on, in a whole new world to kind of set up the boards, and those kill spells like babooms and fire the cannons don't really do much into blue-red. So hey, like what are you gonna do when you face like a big Maui or like a Medusa? Like they kind of just crumble a little bit. Any other decks that you were surprised by that might not have made as big of an impact in the one championship that we had, but any decks that you see that might not be as prevalent coming into this season?
I wanna jump on that because I think this brings an issue of also like what format is your LGS playing, because a lot of the guide said you guys should be playing best of 3, but LGSs of course can make it 2-game format, they can make it 1-game format, that can make it a dice roll, whatever. But in particularly because it's best of 3, I think you see a lot of red purple, because traditionally red purple has a hard time 2-0ing, but it doesn't have a hard time winning a match. So in even us, for example, a small sample size, there was a lot of green steel, but the second most played deck besides green steel was red purple, and that is traditionally a bad matchup. But the thing is, red purple has such a good like 3-game format kind of vibe, deck build, whatever have you, that it's actually a pretty good choice into set champs. I know like my buddy Michael Dickerson, he played in a 50-something set champs, and he was on like no goat red purple, and he took it down. So it just kind of goes to show you the power of how just adding an extra game gives Ruby Amethyst so much more legs. It's kind of weird, but interesting.
I kind of agree there too. I lost my second game to Ruby Amethyst, and it was just because they got 2 Queen's Castles on the board fairly early, and it's like, what do you do then? You get B prepped right afterwards, and then you're kind of just sitting there letting them gain lore. So yeah, in a 3-game format, Ruby Amethyst is pretty good.
Yeah, definitely a deck to consider for set champs for sure. Just because, yeah, it's that extra game just means a whole difference to Ruby Amethyst for sure.
Yeah, the few set champs that I have done very well in have been purple, and most of them have been red purple. I think my first set championship was a red purple. It's just a solid deck that is really hard to beat twice when you have 3 opportunities to do so, and it just feels really good to run into, and it takes a really bad hand for red purple to really get off its engine, which has only gotten stronger ever since Into the Inklands, and even into set 4 and set 5.
That's a good point. Like you just like made me think of an idea. Like red purple, easy to beat once, not easy to just flat out 2-0.
Yeah, and they also don't run a lot of uninkables. I think a lot of the other decks that we're seeing are on more uninkables. And I've seen red purple lists that are running under 10. So
jeez.
Like
I remember the days when you ran 17 back in my day.
more chances to hit, and you're not missing as much.
Yeah, that's crazy. They don't know the pain we old timers had to go through for our ink,
Well, let's talk briefly about kind of the other thought process that we should be going into with set champs, which is it falls under a different kind of category between the local tournaments that you run on a weekly basis and the DLC. That is the in-between. That is theoretically what kind of keeps us going, and it was kind of like the ceremonious end of a set, because right as soon as set champs ends, we're going to be in Ezrite C. So we're like right around the corner. So a nice ceremonial end to Shimmering Skies, and you get a Mirabo promo, hopefully. But where does that actually rank? Like, how competitive should this be? So, like, if we say, like, Locals is a 1 out of 10 in intensity and DLC is, like, an 8, I'm not going to say a 10, because that's really, like, North American Championships and Worlds. Like, where exactly does this rank? Is it really, like, right in the middle at 4? Or is it more like a 2, a 3? Is it, like, a 5 or a 6? Like, what do you guys think?
I think in the past, it was a lot more high intensity. For the very first set champs, the Stitches were going for like a grand. You know, I sold mine for $700. That's pretty high intense. I think around then, when you have a prize card that big, you know, it's effectively the cost of a Let It Go, or even more when it first came out. You're looking almost at an 8 in intensity of competitiveness. Now, I don't think anyone ever really got that extreme because the game was still so new, but you know, there was definitely people who were like, no, you missed your Diablo trigger, like it is a May, you know, we can't rewind it, you know. But I think nowadays it's kind of gone down. Even for myself, I think I would be more okay with letting people, you know, I wouldn't, like, let's say you missed your Diablo trigger and like 3 turns down the line you're like, oh, I forgot to draw 3 turns ago. I'm not gonna be like, no, we can't fix that. But you know, if you were like, I drew my card for turn and I like inked or play a thing, and you're like, oh, I forgot my Diablo draw. It's like, yeah, whatever. The game state hasn't really changed. I'd let it go. And I think it's because now that the pricing is not as good, it's the top 8. I feel there's like less stress, though. Even though, I don't know, to me, at least in the one set championships I play, was like way more stressful because the metagame felt way more meta. Where in like Inklands one, people were just kind of playing whatever. It wasn't full of, I guess it was full of red blue, but I don't know. I felt like everyone was on a meta deck in the last set championships I played. I personally think it's toned down. Like, I'm not going to be as rule strict, but I am still going to hold myself to the high level play because that's how I feel like I should always be playing. So I'm not going to rewind my own mistakes, but if you make one and it's not too far in the game, I'm not going to be like, no, you can't.
And I'm going to go the opposite way of you. Last set champs, I played more casually. I was playing Mufasa just because I didn't like the meta. So I was like, I'm just going to play something for fun and like go about it in a fun way. Whereas this one, because the DLC is coming up for us, I'm like, I'm going to take this really seriously. The first one, I played a deck that I was curious about. Like, I played Blurple and didn't work out how I liked it. And now I'm going back to, you know, green, yellow, which I think is one of the best decks in the meta right now. So
yeah, it's a good
I'm going to take it a little bit more serious. I could see being a little bit more lenient on some of the stuff. And I think that's just part of Lorcana almost. I think trying to keep that community not like some of the other TCGs where it's a little more inviting. But
yeah,
if you make a mistake, I'll probably let you take it back. But if you do something that would hurt me a lot with you taking it back, I'm probably going to tell you no. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it this time around.
So let me ask, like, beyond that, we're friends and teammates. Let's say I'm like some guy you've never met before, and I like ink the wrong card, and I'm like, oh, can I take that back? Are you gonna be like, no? Or are you gonna be like, yeah, it doesn't matter?
I'd probably let you take that back. I mean, inking a card, not that big of a deal. But say you played a song in the wrong order or did something in the wrong order and it hurt you in some way, I probably wouldn't let you take that back.
Yeah, I think like a big case scenario was like, I remember Christy, her opponent like wanted to redo an entire attack sequence. And I was like, you attacked with 3 different cards and like sequences. That's such a rewind. That's like a judge rewind where like someone has messed up and we have to rewind 3 different sequences. In that case, it gets a little hairy. But I know, like, for example, some people are very like, if you ink the wrong, it's like, you know, you ink the wrong card, that's your card, you take it with you. And I think now it's going to be a little more lenient. I know definitely people were like that. Even at my standpoint, I was never like that because I don't want to feel like that guy. I don't want to feel Like, oh, you inked the wrong card, so I won because you made a silly mistake. I wanted to win off the skill level. So I definitely agree. Like something minor, as long as the turns haven't super gone past, then yeah, it's fine. But an entire sequencing turn, that's a little crazy. What do you rank like this event?
I mean, it's definitely not DLC level. It's probably slightly above middle. I'd probably put it at like a 5, just compared to like locals and stuff. I take it a lot more seriously than a local, but I'm not gonna take it nearly as seriously as a DLC.
What I'm curious though, like I know I'm stealing the host job real quick, Andrew, and I want to hear your opinion on this. But like, let's say the next card is like unplayable, trash, enchanted. I don't know. It's Forbidden Mountain enchanted. Like, does the competition is the surprising affect your level of competitiveness, or is it the competitiveness that affects you? Or like if it went back up to another Stitch card, are you going to be more tight gripped about how lenient you are?
If it was another Stitch level card, I'd definitely be more tight grip. If it's just a fine card, bad card, whatever you want to say, I'd probably take the same approach. A 5 on the competitiveness side. But yeah, if it jumps up to a Stitch level card, maybe it is an 8.
So I almost feel like I treat this a little less seriously than I would if I was at like competitive constructed side event at a DLC. I think that's probably like if this was a scale of 1 being a local, 8 being a DLC, 9 North American Championship, 10 being Worlds, like competitive constructed is probably like a 5 or a 6. This would be like a 3. I think I would almost be very similar to like a sealed event because like I feel like I really want the tickets, but I'm also not gonna like make a big deal about like sharking every single one. I just play the best I can, and if it works out, great, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. So I think it's about a 3 on a scale. I will say that back in Stitch era, they were probably a solid 5. 1, we didn't have side events yet. 2, none of us had went to a DLC yet. I don't even think they announced a DLC yet. So like, yeah, it felt way more intense. Like I still remember the first the first set champ we went to for Stitch, and we were like, this is it. Like this is actual competitive Lorcana, like really top tier stuff. I think it was 32 people. Like it booked out the entire day. The whole room was full. Like it felt like a real like event, and that was great. One element that I don't think we've talked about yet is just we are quite fortunate in our area to have a superfluous amount of set championships. I think maybe 5 stores have just gotten their first set championships just in our area. And I think there's a fair amount of areas that don't even have 5 set champs, period. So like we, I think, have about 20 just within our range. We have one day where 6 stores are running events. Like you literally have your pick of the litter, which part of that does weigh into like how not as competitive as it is, because as you can also imagine, like the quality of your opponents are going to go down, because if everyone was just at this one event, yeah, you're going to have really tough opponents. But if they were all kind of diluted to 6 different places, you won the event, sure, but are you the best player in your region? Like we won't really know. So it's the dilution of it has taken away from some of the competitiveness of it, or not the competitiveness of the seriousness of it, which is in a way good, but in a way kind of a drag.
Yeah.
I kind of agree there. I play online some like camera games, and there's some people that say they're driving 2 to 3 hours for set champs, and that's the only one they have. So like, I could see that being way more serious than like here, where we have so many of them. It's like, which one do I want to go to today?
Do you guys think though that set champ should be like that? Like, we've talked about this before, but set champs kind of feels this in between local Friday night Lorcana and a DLC, because we don't really have anything else. But should set champs be that, or should Ravensburg make another sort of tournament structure like an RCQ, something that can be a little more competitive, or should set champs be that sort of line? What do you guys think?
I don't know. I think set champs in their current form, maybe they should just make them more widespread. I think it's the best place to mix your like competitive players and your casual players. I think in Lorcana especially, we have a lot of first time TCG players, and like giving them a chance to go play against people that have been playing for a long time and see what that's like. And even with top 8 winning, I mean, some of them might even win Mirabelles. So I think this iteration benefits the entire community as a whole, I would say. So maybe a more competitive format might be something to look into.
Yeah, I kind of the mindset that like other games also run set championships. Like Magic has a set championship. Pokemon has like a Pokemon game day per set that is individualized for the stores. So like I think there is space in the tournament structure to where this is what it is, which is just an event that just is for their store to say, hey, thanks for coming to our set and thanks for supporting us for these last 2-3 months that this set's been out. Here's how we're going to close it out and jump into the next set. I would rather there be another tournament inserted between the intensity level of a DLC and a set championships. So like just like what I was describing, like the competitive constructed. Like if you make something like that on a more regional level, maybe call it something like regionals. That might be the thing that makes it feel like a very complete system. I don't know what exactly regionals would look like. Like what would be the pricing for that? Is it a whole new set of promos? Is it like airfare to go to the next DLC? Like I don't know. And then like does set championships like play you into regionals? Because I don't think that's the right answer either. I think part of the beauty of regionals would be that anyone from that region can go to that area and try to take it down. But that would be I think there's room to add tournaments, not change the structure of current existing ones. I think they're slowly building up to that.
Yeah, I hope so too, because like kind of the awkward position that I'm in is that I use set champs to test the decks that I'm thinking about doing for DLCs or any competitive events. Just because it's a widespread tournament that lasts a while, it's going to give me more data information than locals, right? So I want to play, you know, my competitive deck because it's like, okay, this is a deck I'm thinking. Yeah, and some guy like, you know, it's like I built brooms, and it's like, well, I just got stomped by a bunch of meta green steel decks, and I can understand that feels bad, and that's something, you know, at set champs you just gotta kind of accept. But I wish there was some sort of distance between where someone as a competitive player can still test the decks they want to and feel prepared for a DLC without necessarily feeling like being that guy against someone who just is like, this is my first set champs, and you know, I feel like set champs is just a bigger version of my Friday night Lorcana. And so, you know, at Friday Night Lorcana, everyone just plays brooms or silly decks and feels no pressure. And set champs should just be a glorified version of that. You can make that argument, and that's fair. And I think once Ravensburg gives competitive players a different event where they can just kind of, you know, focus on being competitive and different pricing, so that way people who want to take this game a little more casually and just see set champs as just a bigger Friday Night Lorcana, they can have that. But right now, there's not a healthy balance, and I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect because generally casual players don't like losing a bunch to competitive players because they feel like, oh, I don't have the money to build all these meta cards, so I just lose a lot, and then that kind of makes me sad, and therefore I don't want to play. So I don't know if there's this happy medium, or maybe people just accept like, hey, this is the premium competitive event, and we're all just going to play super mean decks against each other and see who's the last one standing. I really don't know. So I'm really hoping they expand the competitive format so we don't have like that distance, because sometimes I feel that way in the community where people are just like, oh, you're playing meta deck, oh great, I sure do love playing against green steel again. So I don't know, it's kind of conflicting, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think there needs to be another specifically competitive event, because I think we've all said that set champs is for everyone. So I don't want to be the guy that's stomping on someone who's going to their first tournament with their starter deck, you know? And I think there will be people like that at some set champs. I think we need another competitive format that's, you know, sponsored by Ravensburger.
Yeah, because then otherwise it's like, oh, I have to put myself down, right? It's like, well, if everyone's playing a starter deck, therefore I have to play a starter deck. Otherwise, I'm being that guy, and that's not how I enjoy the game, right? Some people do love playing, you know, tribal brooms or play a starter deck or whatever, but that's not for me. And you know, there's nothing wrong or right with either decisions, but you know, I want to make sure that both sides are happy. So it's tough, and in a single event, that's tough to make everyone happy, you know. And they're kind of doing that with the top 8 promos, which we've have a video about how I personally feel about that. But I'm hoping the future we'll get more stuff.
You almost brought up the idea of possibly expanding these set champs to tribal set champs, to where stores can make their own rules about deck formats. Like, oh, you can't play purple.
No. No. It's interesting, but at least we're not dealing with set champs where gatekeeping was allowed, and that's the way to answer all your problems. So I'm happy about that.
All right, before we close out for the evening, let's say you have a set championship tomorrow, and it is a best of 2 format. Let's say they went best of 2. What are you bringing?
I'm thinking green steel. I think it's a pretty good deck. I think an important thing to note too is understanding local meta. And I think a lot of people are not going to really bring counter decks to green steel. So I think the answer is to play green steel. But if I was thinking, I'm a blue steel player and there's a lot of green steels, and I play blue steel. So it's really about what your meta. But me personally, I would bring green steel.
And I honestly agree. I think green steel is the deck to bring right now. I won't be bringing green steel. I'll be bringing green yellow. It's more comfortable for me. I've played it a lot. Have a lot more time playing it. And I don't particularly like playing the per se meta deck. I like playing something a little off-brand. So similar play style, but I have more comfort with it because I've been playing it since Shimmering Skies started. It was the deck that I thought was going to be one of the top decks this set. So got a lot of games on it. So it's my comfort pick.
And then let's say it was a best of 3 format with, I don't know. Let's take it to North Carolina, and there's 55 people. Like, what should you run?
My answer is still the same, but I'm going to give a little explanation. I think in a blind meta, I'm on blue-red because I still am perceived that it is the best deck. And in best of 3, I would still be on blue-red because I feel a lot of times blue-red mostly loses to itself. And in a 2-game format, when you brick to yourself, that's it. You either draw or you lose. But in 3 games, if you brick once, you can still get that 2-0 or that 2-1. So I would be on blue-red for sure. And I know a lot of people are worried about it on time, but I've never timed playing blue-red in best of 3, so I'm not worried about that.
I'd be playing red-purple in a 3-game format. I think it's the stable pick. I think most games you will win. If you win the dice roll, you'll probably win that set of 3 games. It doesn't miss too often. And when it does miss, your top deck is good enough that you can usually recover. So that's where I'd be at.
Oh, interesting. I didn't peg you on red-purple.
I've lost to it enough to know that it's really good.
Hey, so you're only on green-yellow if it's 2-game format?
I was saying that's what you should bring. I'm still bringing green-yellow.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. What about you, Andrew?
I would be inclined to agree with you, Dylan. If it was a best of 2 format, I think green steel is the strongest into that. It's proven to be that. I think you could make an argument for something like an amber steel or a steel song, just because of how oppressive it can be, and sometimes that's worth high rolling for. But in a best of 3 format, blue-red is like, if you can get up to that 7 or 8 ink, it just takes one really good card that you draw, and all of a sudden the floodgates are open, and then you have complete control of the entire game. And it doesn't even matter what deck it's really faced against. Like, by the time green steel gets off on blue-red, like, you're theoretically at 6 or 7 ink, and then you're one top deck away from just regaining the game. And in a 3-game format, chances are you're going to see that top deck at least twice. That'd be my thought.
If it's red for 3, right? There's 3 letters in red, and it's a 3-game format. Is that the moniker?
All right, gentlemen, any last words of advice for our viewers as they come into the last couple of weekends here of set championships?
I think no matter what, remember, guys, it's all about building community, having fun, having good games with friends, making new friends. So no matter what deck you decide to bring, just have a good time and make sure you set realistic expectations for yourself. Just because you may or may not win a winner Mirabelle doesn't mean you're not a winner. You know, some people want to go 3-2, and to them that's a win. Some people just are like, you know what, I'm going to try to play the worst deck ever in Lorcana, and if I even get one match, that's a win in my book. And I'm like, hey, go for it. Set goals. at the end of the day, there can only be 8 people who get them. So setting goals for yourself and achieving those goals is really good. And you know what? I just might do that. I might just try to build the worst Lorcana deck ever and try to win a match with it and be done, you know? So that's my advice.
And for me, I would say go with what you're comfortable with. It doesn't matter what that is. I think more games on a deck is better than picking up the latest meta deck and thinking you can win with it. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Green Steel's the best deck, so I'm just going to build that deck and play it. And it doesn't really work that way. If you don't know how to navigate it, then you can lose every single game. So go with what you're comfortable with and go from there.
All right. Well, thank you, Brandon, and thank you, Dylan, for our riveting discussion this evening. If you all have any ideas about your opinions on the set championship season, or if you just want to tell us how it all went, please drop a comment, let us know, or talk to us in person. We're always available to talk to about whatever's going on in the Lorcana world. Yeah, and join our Discord. The QR code is at the end of the video. Thank you all again, and you all have a good night.
Bye.